Hi, I'm Parisa Mohammadi, Worldwide HPE Storage Product Manager for Data Protection Solutions, and I'm joined today by my colleague at Veeam, Chris Donahoe. We're both super excited to share how our latest and greatest storage integrations with Veeam benefit our joint customers. Towards the end, we'll dig a bit deeper on these integrations with a short demo. Chris, why don't you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit more about the partnership between HPE and Veeam?
Thanks, Parisa. HPE and Veeam have been great partners over the last decade, and in fact, HPE was the first vendor to have snapshot integrations with Veeam. With our release of Veeam Availability Suite V10, we've extended our points of integrations to make data protection easier for remote sites, and we've simplified cloud data management for our customers. We have a couple of Catalyst integrations which will benefit our mutual customers, Parisa.
Absolutely. With Veeam 10, we had the opportunity to integrate two new solutions. The first is a new feature in our Store Once backup appliance called Catalyst Copy. By integrating Catalyst Copy with Veeam 10, our customers can now replicate their backups to a remote site for disaster recovery. The second is integrating our new HPE Cloud Volumes backup with Veeam, which enables a cloud experience for enterprise protection by backing up your data to the cloud of your choice using Veeam.
Yeah, this is another great option for customers looking to store that archive copy of their backup data in the cloud, and in this case, HPE Cloud Volumes Backup. Enterprise customers are increasingly asking for options to automatically move or copy backup data off-site, and this is definitely another great enterprise-ready solution from Veeam and HPE. Recently, we recorded a demo showing both of these features. Let's take a look.
Thank you, Parisa and Chris. Hey everyone, I'm Evan Carlson. I'm a solutions engineer here at HPE, and today I'm here to demo two new features of Veeam 10 that pertain to HPE. The first feature is Veeam Managed Catalyst Copy Jobs. With this feature, Veeam sends Catalyst Copy commands to an HPE Store Once appliance, and then HPE Store Once is executing those commands. So there are a number of advantages for this feature. Keep in mind that Catalyst data on an HPE Store Once appliance is deduplicated, so we don't want to have to rehydrate data from a primary Store Once and reading it before writing it to the secondary Store Once. With this feature, we no longer have to do that. Data is copied directly from your primary to your secondary Store Once using API commands issued by your Veeam server. So let's jump into the demonstration.
The first thing I'm going to demo is a Store Once Catalyst Copy job that can be configured and managed entirely through Veeam. So for this demo, I've created two backup stores in the Store Once Management Console. Their names are CS1 and CS2. So CS1 contains a single rel VM that I've backed up a total of 7 times with 1 full backup and 6 incremental backups. CS2 is empty at the moment, and restore points from CS1 will be copied to CS2 using a Catalyst Copy job issued and managed entirely through Veeam. So if I open Veeam Backup and Replication, I've added a single vCenter server. And if I go over to my backup repositories, I have 2 Store Once backup repositories, and it's the CS1 and CS2. Lastly, if I go into the Home tab and go to Backup Jobs, I have 1 backup job, which is simply copying that data from the rel VM to my CS1 backup repository. So the first step to do a Catalyst Copy job is to navigate to Home and then Jobs, and then you'll see in the backup ribbon there is this backup copy. And this is a new feature within Veeam 10 that lets you utilize a Catalyst Copy job, so we'll click that. The first step is to give it a name. We'll call it CS1-CS2 to signify that the contents of CS1 are going to be replicated to CS2. Select Next. And then in the storage mapping section, we'll designate the source and target backup repositories. Select Add. For the source backup repository, we'll use CS1. And for the target backup repository, we'll use CS2, sorry. Hit OK. And then for the advanced settings, we want to pay particular attention to this checkbox, the Perform Backup Files Health Check. We want this unchecked. The reason for that is because when it is enabled, it can increase the workload of the target HPE StoreOne system, and the replication process can take longer to complete. So HPE StoreOne already contains a sophisticated mechanism to ensure that the replicated file is the exact copy of the source file. So we really don't need this to be performed by Veeam. So we'll hit OK, hit Next, and just like other backup copy jobs, this job can be ran on a schedule. We won't do that for the purposes of this demo, and we'll hit Apply. And then we'll enable this job and hit Finish. So right now, as I was saying, if we go to the disk, we'll see 7 restore points, and that includes this rel VM that has 1 full backup and 6 incremental backups. And then navigating to backup copy, once this job starts, we'll see that it will start to copy these 7 backup files, which includes that full backup and the incremental backups, to our CS2 backup repository. Now, it's important to note that before Veeam 10, the process would involve creating a standard backup copy job, which involves a gateway server, and I'll navigate to this. And backup copy, if we go to jobs. So using this setting was the only option before Veeam 10, and it would involve a gateway server, and that gateway server would have to rehydrate the deduplicated data from the primary store ones before copying it over to the secondary store ones. So this is a pretty CPU and bandwidth intensive process. In contrast, this new option right here, the HPE StoreOne repository, your Veeam server is essentially just issuing API commands to your StoreOne appliances, then StoreOne is executing those commands. So there's no overhead required by your Veeam server, and it is all done at the StoreOne level. So we'll wait for this job to finish. We navigate back to it. So now that the Catalyst copy job is complete, we'll see that Veeam backup and replication handles backup files saved on StoreOne's backup repositories the same as other storage types such as local disk or NAS. So if we navigate to the backups, we'll see that this is the CS2 backup repository, and it contains all 7 of those restore points that were from the original CS1 backup repository. And they are handled just like backups from any other source. So as you can see, if I right-click the restore point, I have the option of doing any of these: instant VM recovery, instant disk recovery, restoring the entire VM, or just individual virtual disks. Really, there's a lot of options, including just in restoring guest files.
The second feature I'm going to be demoing is HPE Cloud Volume Backups. HPE Cloud Volumes are an enterprise-grade service for your backup application in public clouds. More information can be found at the link here. For the second half of the demo, I'm going to be setting up a Veeam backup repository that points to an HPE Cloud Volume Backup store. So let's jump into the demonstration.
So the first step here is we'll navigate over to our Cloud Volume account, head to the top right and select New Store. And so essentially a few things you should know is that these stores are pretty much handled exactly like Catalyst stores. So once we add them to Veeam as a backup repository, then these will essentially be handled like any Catalyst store with deduplicated data. So we'll select New Store here. We'll give our store name, so I'll just name it CVB ERC. Store description is optional, and then the region, there's only one region in my case, and we'll select Create Store. So very important, you get a username and password that we'll eventually be adding to Veeam when we're creating a backup repository. So we'll want to make sure to download these username and password for later. And so I downloaded it, I'm going to hit close. And as this is creating, the next thing we'll want to do is once it's done, we'll be able to download the secure client. Now this is the secure client that Cloud Volumes use, and you deploy the secure client on a Linux server, and the Linux server will basically, you point your Veeam server when you're running these backups to your Linux server, and then the Linux server will move the data over to the Cloud Volume store. So we'll hit refresh while this is creating. Now that it is active, we can head over to the secure client and be able to download it. So we'll download the secure client. And like I said, this is what we're going to be deploying on our Linux server. And we're going to point our Veeam backup repository to this server. And then that's going to essentially be handled just like a StoreOne's Catalyst store. So now we have these two things downloaded, the credentials for the Cloud Volume Backup Store and the zip file for the secure client binary. So the next thing we have to do is upload it to our Linux server. So I'm using MOBA Xterm. And in this case, this is a CentOS server running CentOS 8. And what we're going to be doing is starting a local terminal so that we can upload those files. So if I head over to my downloads, I'll see those two files that I just downloaded. And now I'm going to copy the secure client binary to my CentOS server. So the first thing we want to do, though, before we copy it over, is create a directory in our opt directory. So we're going to make this Cloud Volumes directory within our opt Cloud Volume location. And then we're going to be adding a user named secure client. So those are two, and I guess I've already done this in previously, so the secure client already exists, but you would normally have to create that user. The next thing we're going to do is upload the binary over. So we're going to copy the HPE CV backup secure client.zip over to our CentOS server. And we'll just throw it right into the Cloud Volumes location. Connection refused. I entered the wrong IP address. My bad. Copy this over once again. It only takes a few seconds because it's a relatively small file. And now we head back over to our CentOS server. And now we're going to go into the Cloud Volumes directory. And we'll now see that file is located there. So we'll now unzip it. And there's a few files here that if you want more information, I'll provide a link at the end of this video that you can go for more information on how to set this up. But the first thing we're going to do is make sure that we have ownership. It should be with the secure client. So for this entire directory, we're going to be recursively giving secure client our permissions for this directory. So we'll enter that, and then for the file we just created, that Cloud Volumes file, this is handing over ownership of this file to that secure client user. And then we want to make sure that we have 3 ports, 9386, 9387, and 9388. These should be open in your firewall outbound. And lastly, we want to make sure that these files right here have the proper file permissions. So we're going to be running a chmod 755 for the actual secure client binary, and then a chmod 644 for our opt Cloud Volumes, the secure client YAML file. So that is the config YAML file, and then the client.cert file, and lastly the ca.cert file. And then finally a 600 chmod for our client.key. Now once we have that, then everything else is automatically configured when we downloaded the secure client binary. It's automatically pointing to that cloud volume backup store that we just created. So for the purposes of this demo, I'm just going to run this binary directly in the CLI, but keep in mind that you probably want to deploy this as a service instead of running it directly through the CLI. But anyway, let me run this binary. It's going to check for updates, run any updates available, and then we should be able to create a Catalyst store on Veeam that points directly to this. So now if we head over to Veeam and we hit new backup repository, keep in mind that this Veeam can't really even distinguish that this is a cloud volume backup store. It would just handle it as any other HPE store once appliance. So we'll select deduplicating storage appliance for the backup appliance type, and then HPE store once. And we'll just call this CVB ERC. Hit next, and then provide the IP of our Linux server that's hosting our secure client. So in this case, this would be the IP of the secure client. And then the credentials, we'll want to add new credentials, and then we'll head back over from when we downloaded those credentials. These are provided to us by the secure or by Cloud Volume. And so we'll enter that as a username and then just copy and paste that right into the password and hit OK. And then hopefully if we've configured everything correctly, this next step should work just fine. And you can see right here, it's in the client dialer, so it's properly negotiating the communication between our Cloud Volume server and the Veeam server and the secure client. And then if you'll notice, that is the store I just created earlier on our demo Cloud Volume account. I'll uncheck the limit maximum concurrent tasks because we don't want to limit the I/O to our Catalyst store. Hit next, and then just keep the defaults for everything else, and we'll apply. And now it's going to add the Catalyst store, the Cloud Volume Backup store, as a Catalyst store in Veeam. So we'll wait for this to finish, and then so adds pretty quick. The last step we're going to do is just run a backup of a VM that will show that we're backing up directly to this Cloud Volume Backup store. So we'll head over to Home, right click and select Virtual Machine. And I just have a pretty small VM that I'm going to be backing up here. So we'll just call this CVB ERC backup. And hit next, and we'll just add one virtual machine that I've created for the purposes of being backed up. So it's the CVB backup VM, and that's just another CentOS VM. Hit next, and then the backup repository, we'll use that CVB store. Hit next, and we'll use the advanced settings for that repository type. Hit next. Keep the defaults and apply, and then I'll run this job when I hit finish. So this job will take some time to complete, but it's worth noting that the secure client is logging the client dialer. So it's showing that this is actually negotiating properly, and it looks like our backup is kicking off properly. So I'll open this and leave this running. This will take several minutes, and I will fast forward until this is done. Okay, so it looks like the backup finished successfully for that backup job. So the next thing we're going to do is head over to the Veeam backup disk, where we're going to notice that that backup job now has one restore point from that backup we just created. So if you notice, if we right-click it, this is handled like any other restore point where we can use IVMR. We could restore the disk, the entire VM, or guest files even from that CVB store. So it's really handled by Veeam the same way as any other restore point. And lastly, we'll head back to our Cloud Volume Backup demo account. And we'll see now that we have a single backup, and it was pretty small. It was a pretty small CentOS VM, but just wanted to point out that even with a single backup of a single VM, we have a use capacity of about 2 gig and a logical capacity of over 4 gig. So even in a single backup, we have a deduplication ratio higher than 2 to 1. So it's really pretty impressive.
So you can see how simple and effective HPE and Veeam have made data protection to the cloud. Back to you, Chris and Parissa.
As you can see, the tight integration that exists between HPE and Veeam can really benefit our customers when it comes to protecting their mission-critical data. Customers first utilize HPE hardware on site to provide a Veeam repository meeting their performance needs. Then, Veeam's Catalyst integration allows customers to move backup data to a secondary data center site or HPE Cloud Volumes Backup Store in HPE's cloud. Customers can protect their data with minimal backup infrastructure at remote sites and possibly eliminate backup infrastructure altogether at a secondary DR site.
And we look forward to more integrations like this that enable a cloud experience with flexible deployment options. To learn more about the technical details behind our new integration points with Catalyst Copy and Cloud Volumes Backup, check out our reference configuration. And to find out more about the HPE and Veeam partnership, visit our website below.